Okay,
Today is Thursday, August 17th, policy committee meeting. Meeting is called to order at 3:05. Leah, has the meeting been properly posted?
yes.
All right. First discussion item is 522.7. You got the floor, Ms.
I do have, I do have.
You have the floor.
Okay, alright. So these are this is our first meeting where we have our WASB
Oh, really?
policies.
Yeah.
So I did start going through the list and I tapped on Troy to pick to go through the policies that were assigned to the Director of Technology that were over the 5-year review cycle. And so we picked 522.7. And this one hasn't been updated since April 2013. This one was old. Oh wait, I think I'm looking at the wrong
2010,
one.
April of 2010. Is that the one? 522.7?
You have an extra five
June
27.
April, I have, no, April 12, 2010.
Why was this printed?
That's what I have.
This sheet right here.
Oh,
Yeah,
This
this
one?
one.
There's no
You
page.
need one?
I
Oh,
actually,
but I think she's got
Original.
Yeah, I
I
have
actually,
page.
I pulled up the original policy.
Did you need?
Oh,
So these policies that you hand out, these are from WASB.
yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, there's no page 2.
Do you need mine?
No, I know
Oh,
that's
okay.
in here. There we go. That's fine. I was like, wait a second, am I writing? And I was like, I'm reading about 8. Okay, yep, this is June of 2020.
Yeah.
So they were last revised, 522.7 was last revised June of 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these are the WASB ones. So yeah, I'm kind of excited, it's our first meeting with our WASB. Heck yeah. And I really don't think there's anything especially interesting that came about through this. So 522.7 is the staff use of information technology and communication resources as a policy. And then the much longer, more detailed, what WASB calls rules. So WASB calls them rules, we call them procedures. So that is something I just wanted us to talk about if we wanted to move forward calling the things rules, or if we wanted to stick with procedures since that's what we have had. That's just really
So they could be
they can be,
interchangeable.
it can be whatever.
Yeah,
The
I
things
mean,
that we
usually,
call-
like Neola uses rules as well, so, and in the business, it's ARs, administrative rules, and it is tomato, but
Is it?
from their lingo, meaning WASB and Neola, rules are
They mean the same thing.
extensions of policies, but the nice thing about WASB is they're gonna update their rules and their policies when they're necessary to be updated. So that's what you're gonna see in their packets. You're gonna see common updates that cross over between both based on their update book, which we have access to now, which is pretty great.
So basically, cause I have the old one, Leah, you just, cause usually what you would do before is you take bits and pieces and transfer it over. It just looks like you just took theirs as a whole and not much of
Yep,
ours,
Troy,
right?
Troy did these, and he took WASB
Okay,
completely.
Okay.
And did not pull from ours.
that's
But
why I
we
wasn't sure.
felt that everything covered was the same though, if that makes sense. We didn't feel that we we absolutely didn't feel like we lost anything
Yeah.
in accepting the WASB one as is. So on the posting, I have ours, I didn't print ours just cause it got to be a lot.
Yeah.
But I can pull them up. So we didn't feel like we lost any information, I think we gained some information. I think probably one of the nicest parts of having WASB is that it really delves into all of the legal references that are out there, both state and federal. So I definitely feel that we have a better sampling of references for people to understand, you know, where all of these things come from. Right now, I left everything that you see in the brackets, which I think we could leave for the public or we could delete. That's just so that we kind of knew what Wisconsin statute 931 to 37 was. So those can either stay or go, but I left them so people could see where they came from. And then, you know, we used to call it this big long thing called Computer Internal Network Electronic Mail and Internet Safety Staff Acceptable Use Policy. I didn't see any problem with taking the WASB title. Both our number and the WASB number were the same, 522.7. So the actual numbering was the same. I don't know if maybe at one point the district had WASB, because a lot of our numbers completely match up.
Oh, okay,
It's likely.
could be.
So I don't know if we
big
did have it at
school
one
district
point in
like this.
time, like when it started and then they got rid of
Yeah.
it, but not all of our numbers match, but I've come to find that a good chunk of our numbers do already match. So the policy pretty much covers the idea that we're using information technology in any of our communication systems for the main purpose of education. And so that's our main focus area. It kind of goes through what technology and communication systems are, and that we have no expectation of privacy when we're using any district resources or when we're on the district network. And that the district has the right to obviously review, monitor, access anything that we're doing at work. It's also a reminder that a lot of the things that we may be doing with our technology is likely subject to public records law and open records. And then just a little bit of warning that we'll take whatever disciplinary or legal action we may need, you know, if required. So that's kind of the policy. I feel like it's a good general policy to have. And then the rule, if we like that word, whatever we want.
Yeah, we'll probably have to have a talk about it at a certain point, or, hey,
Oh, rule
going
versus
forward,
policy?
yeah.
Or procedure, yeah.
I mean, are we gonna just start changing them all, or I guess how
As
does
we
that
move
work?
forward.
Yeah, I mean, cause then,
I just would like it to be consistent, however, whatever we switch it to, it should be.
So I think I think we would just then, as we do
yeah,
them,
just
change
start
them to
phasing
rules.
them out, phase it out.
Cause it's a lot of manual work to go and
Okay.
change them all.
Yeah, if we're gonna stay with WASB, we might as well use their language.
Because then
Yeah,
it just kind
It'll
of,
be easier.
yeah,
Then
me
we
too.
don't have to adjust the language.
Okay, that sounds
So
fine.
this policy is fine. I do actually like the wording of the new policy from WASB versus the old one, because you can kind of tell it's dated.
Mhm.
I was
The new
kind of
one's
surprised that it was as old as it was, seeing that it's like one of the areas that changes the most rapidly.
Well, the wording here,
Yeah.
because the internet is a digital environment, it includes, so the
Yeah.
new one is definitely
I
much
like
more
it,
succinct,
yeah.
I like it,
Yeah.
okay.
Alright, I like it, but I think it's missing some key stuff.
Really,
Okay.
in the policy?
As being an expert in the field,
Yeah,
this is missing a
Well,
lot
in
of
the
key stuff.
policy or in the rule?
or in the rule
Kind of in the
procedure.
procedure,
Okay.
Oh, we're
I used to go out procedures.
yeah.
Rule slash
But
procedures.
usually in the policy, you
Either
have stuff that, in there that the procedure backs up. For example, everyone knows they should not disable antivirus software. That should be policy, that all computers have antivirus software. It should be policy that no one shares their network accounts. It should be policy that staff signs off on this acceptable use policy and understands that, hey, this is monitored
Mhm.
and here's the rules.
And do they get,
So we
do
have
they
to
sign
sign
off?
off elsewhere.
Okay,
Okay, so you have
for employment.
yeah.
That's
I know, I
actually,
just had to do it.
well, now that you jumped ahead,
Okay, wait,
that's
wait,
the
wait.
one thing that I wanted to bring up, because in the old procedure slash rule,
Yeah,
it did actually delineate here, that's why I was highlighting it to see if it was going to transfer here, because it says right here, no employee student may use the district's computer facility to propagate any virus, it has it all
Yeah.
here, but we don't have it.
Yeah, so I think this, the policy is a little lacking of some things,
You should look at the old one,
yeah.
because it also has
Um,
other stuff that I thought would be prudent for
is
us
it
to
in
have.
the rule?
No.
And stuff? Oh, well, it's gotta be somewhere, don't you think?
And as far as the title of
I
the
mean, it
policy,
should be.
I
Okay,
think
yeah.
acceptable use policy is good enough. I mean, did you check the staff use of information technology communication resource?
Yeah.
That's a mouthful. Did you have you
Yeah,
read the
I see.
acceptable use policy?
Well, this is
I
what
mean-
WASB calls it.
Yeah.
So like, if we're gonna go with WASB, I'm trying, like I said, I didn't do these, but
Mhm.
I mean, I would like to keep their titles
Yeah.
and their
Okay.
numbers.
Gotcha, 'cause
So
then-
you're saying you want that part in the policy aspect of it, or you're thinking about
Well, I think it
the
needs to be
rules?
policy, like the policy is we don't share passwords, the policy is we don't disable. And then the procedure backs that up.
Cause the whole thinking is we use WASB as a reference, right? And then we
Correct,
can
the starting point.
Oh yeah,
Put
we
some
can do what we want.
nuances of our district in, yeah.
I just was looking to keep the titles the same, so
For
when
sure.
we go in,
Oh,
we're seeing it and we're.
It plugs in the same,
Yeah, and I just bring up, in the title, I mean, that's not the end all for me, I mean, if you look at it everywhere else, it's called an acceptable use policy
really,
across the
Yeah.
business board, yeah, I mean.
Hmm.
In big multi-billion-dollar companies, it's called acceptable use policy, in Washington County, it's called acceptable use policy, at Milwaukee County, it was called acceptable use policy.
Yeah, I mean, it was at MPS too.
But that doesn't matter, what the content is what matters. So I would like to table this one and kind of go through the old one, see what's missing out of the new one.
after we discuss it, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I do know all that stuff is in the handbook, cause I just did the handbook, so I
That's what I was
definitely
gonna
know.
ask too.
We have I definitely know we have a section that includes the passwords, the logins,
I
we
remember that.
do have a section that talks, I did say like we actually have a huge section of the handbook that mirrors our old procedure,
Mm-hmm.
and I do know that like the antivirus and all that stuff is on there.
That should be cross-referenced, though, I
Yes.
think, in the rule or the policy.
Well, I remember the handbook having the policy in it
Mhm.
that refers to that section in the handbook.
And I
remember
actually have it
seeing
in another section too for
Yeah.
passwords and
Yep.
other stuff like that.
that. So you want it also here just to be part of that.
Yeah.
right?
I mean, yeah, I think we need,
But I
it needs
think
to
it
be
used to
complete.
be in the procedure though, I don't
Really?
think it was in the policy.
Not in the new one, I don't think, cause I read it.
Oh no, I mean the old one, I think that
Yeah,
stuff
the
was
old
all
one
in the
had
old
it.
Yeah, see, I'm
procedure.
okay with the policy being like an overhead sweeping
Mhm.
view of it, but
The
then
rules-
just
Just
nitty
keep it to
gritties
the
in the
rules.
rules,
The
yeah,
rule still carries the weight of policy, we enforce it
Right.
the same.
yes.
I mean, and they should back each other up, right?
So if we approve the policy, we can change the rule as we go.
Okay.
That's
Because there
the,
is
yeah.
more in the old procedure / rule than there is in the new one.
Right.
And so that's the ones that I highlighted here.
Yeah, if you have the
So
old
what two
policy,
sections, like the,
just the old policy, not the
Oh,
procedure,
the
the
old
policy.
policy, yes, I do.
you sorted this in my book? I didn't print out everything,
So I scrawled more than you today.
I know, I didn't have everything printed out. I looked on the computer, but I didn't.
It's the little thing.
Yeah.
If you want it to be more robust than to the new one, then yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, administrative rules are similar to handbooks in
Yeah.
that handbooks aren't actually policy, but they fall under policy in a way that they have the force of policy. So it's very simple.
Oh, yeah,
Administrative
sure.
rules are the
Just like a
same way.
procedure, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just the way of the district.
Well, here's part of it on the screen, I can scroll.
Oh, thank you. 'Cause all my glasses must be in one spot right now today. There's none in the car.
That's happened when you want to-
So page 2 of the new rule, number 5 says the user may not disable internet tracking software or implement a private
So internet
browser.
traffic
Are we doing
software is not
those?
malware, anti-malware.
Why don't we can't even touch stuff, so like I can't even put anything on here.
Like maybe just kind of, we talked about the items you want in place,
We
yeah.
talked about the rule now,
I think we're on the rule now.
Yeah.
and I wanted to ask about Twitter.
Yeah, we need to have X.
I think it's
Well,
called,
so that's why I
Formerly known as
highlighted it.
Twitter.
I think it's
Because I
called
was
differently
like,
now.
I think it's now called X, but technically the website is still twitter.com.
Yeah, so I think we should have both, no?
I don't know, but I'm just saying,
I would say X.
And then I thought about like not even putting Twitter on there. It's what it was in, I highlighted it because I'm like, I don't even think it's called Twitter. But I mean, we could have like Instagram and Facebook as examples, it doesn't need to be Twitter.
I would take them both out and say social media, generalize it,
Yeah,
and that's your catch-all, that's
yeah,
TikTok,
and we
that's,
don't have
Well,
to
they're
like,
just
Snapchat,
examples,
that's-
it's
Keep it
not
out.
a,
Okay, so an
it's
example.
not an all-inclusive list.
that's true, it's
It's
examples.
just providing an
Yeah, just take it
example.
out and, yeah.
I would just,
Yeah, if you
I
just
just
have
highlighted it.
examples, you can leave that, yeah.
We just switch it to Instagram so we don't.
So the authorized, or I guess I don't wanna interrupt our flow, like, were you
We're on the
looking?
roll right now?
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I had a question about that, and then, that you have that authorized personnel highlighted,
Well, I highlighted that because
it's not specified
I wasn't
anywhere.
exactly sure I felt that was a good list.
Yeah, but the term authorized personnel, I did wear glasses at the time. I don't see that term specified anywhere. So shouldn't we reference authorized personnel if we're going to?
It's the
is it-
very first
did I miss
thing,
it?
it's in D. It's-
Sorry, I
it's
probably
the,
missed it. Oh, you're right,
It's right
okay,
after there.
thank you, that's why I thought I'd bring it up, just to double check.
Okay.
Another pair of eyes,
So, I mean, I get where they're going
yeah,
with its communication with students. I wasn't 100% sure how I felt about that section.
I know,
So
me
it's-
too.
So I did add, the one thing I did
Okay.
add myself to the policy was referencing, because I made it when I came to the district, policy 515, the student non-fraternization policy. So I
Yes.
created that, so I'm comfortable with what's in there. And it definitely limits employee communication with students. I guess there's just a little part of me that
I think people,
I'm not totally comfortable with the idea that like if you have a pre-existing relationship, I get like
those
a
examples
kid,
are,
niece or nephew, but then like then it's starting to become too loose to me
Yep.
because
I agree.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that.
Well, I was thinking about that, like, I know all the, like say a coach, I know all the people on the team, I know all the adults, so they're like my friends.
kids.
Let's say, and the kids of those adults, they're friends, they're the child of those adults, cause didn't it say something in there, like,
Yeah.
so I think that's a stretch,
So this would feel like a stretch for me, the pre-existing social part.
yeah,
I think
Yeah.
if they're actually like
Existing
a
relationship.
family member,
I think.
like that's different.
Yes.
Like you're my actual parent, grandparent, aunt or uncle, like
I think
legally.
it's just say it family,
That to me
that's
is different than my mom's friend.
exactly,
Because I brought the student non-frat to the district because I've had a lot of experience having to use a policy like that.
I get
And
it,
this made me uncomfortable.
me too.
So that's kind of why I just highlighted that area, so it would trigger my memory that, and we're gonna bring this back to the table anyway. But I would probably be looking to myself, choose to remove pre-existing social relationship and get rid of,
Yep.
and just leave it to be a true family
Yep, I agree.
relationship. And then not have like a student who is the child of an adult friend, or is the friend of an employee's child, or a member
Well,
of
at
the
that
same
point, it's
civic
like
group.
anybody.
'Cause that starts to be a lot of
Pretty
people,
much.
I mean,
especially
cause
in
you
a,
can read between the lines and go, well, I
especially in
thought
a
it was
village,
like that.
especially in a village.
Yeah. Well, I think you can read between the lines and go, well, I thought it was like this,
That's
if that gives wiggle room for anybody right there.
Yeah, I don't like the wiggle room,
No, me neither.
cause that's how a lot
I-
of things happen, is cause I kinda already know a little bit, and
Like, oh,
it made me uncomfortable.
I agree.
So I'm gonna probably, I'll be choosing to remove
I'm glad you said that before I did.
that. And then I guess authorized personnel, I get why those might be the people, but to me, it's just all district employees. And to me, it's also volunteers.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I actually don't think it's limited to the people listed here. So I would probably change I would probably get rid of authorized personnel definition and just keep using employees everywhere. And then see if there's any places in here where this might also apply to volunteers.
So by volunteers,
So
is
those
there
are the volunteers that like go through our system because they're going to be in place for a more substantial amount of time.
Okay.
So those are the people that like maybe come and read to
And they're
kids
in
like
your
once a
system.
week.
Yeah.
You know, not just the parent who pops in for like an hour, it's
Yeah.
not that. It's
Right.
people who have a more prolonged
like
voluntary
relationship with the district, yeah.
So that is something I was gonna recommend doing.
Okay.
I just decided not to do it because I brought it up.
Do we have a cybersecurity policy?
I feel like, I mean, it sounds pretty familiar.
So here's what's happening in the industry. If you don't have a cybersecurity policy and you don't have multiple, you won't get insurance. You have to have an incident response plan, you have to have a cybersecurity policy.
That'd be a question for Troy, huh?
Yeah,
So I know we meet whatever the requirements are for our insurance.
Okay,
That I do know, because we just had a,
We don't have a policy labeled cybersecurity.
but I don't think we have a
checking-
policy labeled that.
But I'm checking on the WAS, or the WASB for.
alright,
So I think that's one we should look at. And like I say,
I think we, I don't know why, but I vaguely remember having that discussion.
and I mean, current insurance may not have required a last renewal, but I mean, they're getting strict because of the amounts of ransomware they're paying out. I mean, I just went through this with County Mutual, who's Washington County's insurance provider, and there's a 5-page format to fill out asking me, do you have cybersecurity, do you have backups? How often do you check your backups? All these policies. And they are gonna start requiring it. You know, as soon as one does it, they all do it. And I can tell you, County Mutual is doing it. I can tell you there's many other,
So
Government
the
insurance companies
WASB has a 363.2, it's internet safety and acceptable use.
what was it, 363?
363.2, and this is a policy template from the WASB,
Internet safety.
internet safety and acceptable use.
Okay.
And it's quite lengthy.
They are. I mean, there's lots of stuff to cover.
Personal internet account information,
It's probably talking about some of the stuff I just brought up.
here I can shoot it. I can shoot it to everybody, email it.
Sure.
They said that copy.
So what did you say the number was? So
It's
we have,
3.2,
3.2.
and now, just need a second.
so we have 363.2 in our current policies. And it's the student acceptable use policy and procedure. 300 series is the student section.
Yep.
I have a feeling it resembles the staff one.
Could.
Yeah.
Could.
I'm just gonna throw a scenario out here, so looking at this, you know, like coaches set up band apps with, like, for example, my daughter was a dancer, and with all the parents involved and all the students were in it and the coach.
Mhm.
Is that's acceptable?
Yep, so we have our student non-prep policy, and then athletics and activities, Brian and, well, they're actually both named Brian,
Oh, yeah,
have an additional coach's manual that gets into
oh, okay,
more specifics of the kinds of things they set up.
okay,
And one of the requirements is that parents be on or have access to it.
gotcha,
So coaches often will need to maybe communicate with students differently, like game canceled, thunderstorm, you
Yeah.
know, like it's gonna be a much more immediate thing, so there are some things that coaches may be doing where they are texting to a group text, where maybe a teacher wouldn't be doing that, just because of the nature of coaching being a little different.
Yeah.
And maybe being nights, weekends, you know, other weird times, but the
Yeah.
parents have to either be a part of the group or have access to the group if they want.
okay,
And it still has to be 100% work related, you know, like
Yeah.
you're only communicating via that
Right.
method because you have to use that method. And it's specific to the actual work, it's not for any kind of chit chat, social chit chat or anything
Yeah.
like that.
and then when you're texting it out, it's like the masses are seeing it, it's not like you're
Yeah, so
always
you-
one-on-one.
So you're not texting one individual student, you create a group text
Gotcha.
so that everyone is on it.
Yeah, they use, I never went on it, but it was called band.
Yeah, so they have an even more detailed
Yeah, really.
manual that
Okay.
includes their own communication section.
Good to know, it's just a scenario that popped in my head.
Cause at one point we, you know, limiting text, it's like, we did realize that coaches may need to have fast access.
Yeah,
I just sent over 363.2 to everybody's email. It was a policy template. It's not a policy, it's a WASB sample for internet safety and acceptable use.
Okay, so you mentioned like malware and antivirus.
Yep.
You mentioned cybersecurity policy.
Yep.
I'm feeling like that one's probably gonna be a little like this.
I mean, there's also backup and data retention. There's also business continuity.
So backup and data retention is probably going to be in our other stuff
other
when we're
area.
talking
Yeah.
about public records, so I think that actually is covered.
Password policy. I think what else, those are other big ones.
Well, and what do you mean by policy? Like, I mean, we don't have a choice with our passwords, you know, like, it goes
But
to
that's
like,
still the policy.
it goes to like an, well, there are things that are like board policy that'll be, you know, like housed here.
Mhm.
And then there are other things that I call more like internal rules and guidelines or internal policies where, I mean, we don't have a lot of choice, like this, every 90 days, we have to have a new one and it has to have all of this kind of stuff in it. So like, you don't even have a choice, so,
Yes and no, you do have a choice, so if you use your own laptop, which we have a bring your own device policy, you're exempt from that, because that policy only applies to that piece of equipment. That computer's gonna tell you to change your password policy in 90 days.
but like if I want a VPN in to get to anything important, I still have to use that stuff to get in.
The computer? Or what are you talking about? If you have the
Like if this
VPN?
was my personal device, but I
Yeah.
wanted to VPN into our system,
Yep,
I'm still
it will not
using my
prompt,
district.
it will not prompt you every 90 days for password policy. Your county, or, sorry,
Well, I mean, they
Your
wouldn't even
school
let me use a personal device here, so I know it
Yeah.
says it in there, but they wouldn't even let me use a
Yeah.
personal device. Because at my former employment, I
Sure.
had 3 devices that I had, when I came here, I got 1, and so I wanted to use my personal to be my at-home backup, and they said no.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
I know it's in there, but we
Makes sense,
actually,
makes sense, I don't think I would want to
we
have
actually
that,
haven't
because
been
then
allowed to use.
I just took a Chromebook home.
cause otherwise your personal device is up
So
for
this is
grabs,
the
then,
personal
right,
device
for-
we're allowed to use,
public.
because they're not gonna buy us all cell phones, but,
Yeah,
so
Gotcha.
then I think that should be defined in the
Okay.
policy, you know?
There's a records management.
Because right now, if I start using my personal laptop, you guys tell me no, I'm gonna say, well, I can use personal devices. Tell me where it doesn't say.
we have that, we're going over that.
well, I mean, I guess you could use your personal device to get to whatever your personal device will let you get to that's already web-based.
Right.
But like, I couldn't get into my drives,
Yeah, your server drives, yeah.
right, so I mean,
If you know what you're doing, yes, you can.
okay. I'm just gonna be honest, Troy's gonna have to
Yeah,
come to
no,
this
no,
next
we can't.
meeting,
Yeah.
he said that he couldn't come to this one, and so
But, well, it's fine, no, we have some
Yeah.
questions and.
he'll have to
Sure.
It's the
come
first location.
No, I know, I know.
Consolidate.
answer. I just know what I was told when I started, so like, I don't think we have a lot of personal devices floating around, but,
Yeah,
See, I mean,
WASB's got records management retention, 823.1.
that's what we have.
Yeah, we're doing that.
and see that right in here, it says, district staff is, the district permits staff to use personal technology devices, then 2 sentences later, it says personal devices include laptop, computers, tablets, cell phones, smartphones, blah, blah, blah,
I mean, technically I can,
so.
like at home, if I know that I'm only
Yeah,
doing
if you wanna check
web-based stuff,
email.
like my email, like I know I can get to that from my personal device. But anything that's on a drive, like I can't get to on my personal
Yeah.
device.
You can with Google.
Stop it right now.
here we go
And
again.
there are people that are safe enough
Yeah.
that can do it.
I'm all for whatever everybody
Yeah.
wants,
I mean,
it's just,
I think it's appropriate to have a policy.
Okay,
I think it's appropriate to have policies that back up what you're currently doing.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a CYA, right? So it's, but and it's not gonna change how we do business here, it's just that, hey, we
Oh,
have a
no.
policy to back it up.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they added multi-factor
Yeah,
authentication,
and
like
that's-
we didn't have that like
And that's one thing that should be
a
True.
added
couple
in
months
here,
ago,
and that's one
Oh,
thing,
really?
you know,
well, for
insurance
all
companies
staff, we
Yeah,
had it
right,
don't wanna see.
like a year ago.
2FA, cybersecurity, policies, that's what insurance companies are gonna start looking for, if you want cybersecurity insurance.
Okay.
It's happening in the industry, more and more people are jumping on it. And it doesn't hurt to have a policy, those policies written up in place,
Okay,
it doesn't hurt.
so I'd probably look to beef up these current ones and not create new ones.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
You know, I just did have a question on page 3, letter F, electronic recording. So in Wisconsin, we're a one-party,
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, as an employer, we're not.
Okay, that's what I figured.
And I
yep,
have up to.
that's what I
I'm
thought,
not into Wisconsin's one party
okay.
rule. You can be that in your private life, but not here.
Okay, that's what I figured, yeah, and I like how it's worded in here,
Yeah.
WASB did it right.
They actually changed that in the handbook back in 2021.
Yeah.
Just because that usually leads to problems.
Yeah.
So in Wisconsin, as long as one party knows the conversation is
Mhm.
being recorded, well, that's not cool in a workplace. You know,
Right.
it leads to some odd
Yep.
Mhm.
tensions.
So
No, I
there's a part
agree
of
with
the old procedure that kind of delineated the, it delineated the content, like sexual content, racial slurs, derogatory. Is that something that we can
I think I've seen that.
possibly add to the new one? It's the old one.
Yeah, I think I've seen it in the new one, yeah.
I didn't see it in the new one. It wasn't. I just think that that would be a good idea to have.
Thought I'd seen that. Or maybe I was looking at the old
See,
one.
it kind of delineated the inappropriate content. Give example.
I mean, yeah, they got inappropriate material right here.
So that's where I'm like inappropriate to rule
Yeah.
what.
It's
Spelling it out.
subjective.
Like an
Here,
example
this
section.
completely racial
That's
slurs,
illegal and
sexual content,
inappropriate.
pornographic content,
Yeah.
derogatory, instructions to cause physical harm,
Say that
threaten, frighten, intimidate.
Yeah.
That's where I use annoy, harass.
So we
Yeah,
might
so
need
maybe
to
carry some of
add
that over and
back-
add to it.
I think
Sure.
I like this part where it's actually delineated versus here, it's
Yeah,
just.
and those can be subsections of
Yeah.
B4.
So add in some of the specifics from the old.
Yeah, yeah.
The
into-
examples.
Into B. Okay.
Okay. So did we decide changing the Twitter to Instagram or just leaving off?
I would
the
just,
social
I would just take it out and
media?
say social
I can
media.
just put
Yeah,
social
that
media
spells it
everywhere.
out.
Yeah,
Got it,
because that's your catch-all.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
then we don't have to keep changing it.
Yeah, for any, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
word.
If
So-
Facebook all of a sudden does go to
Yeah.
Meta, we don't have to change it again just because of the word Facebook. It's just social media.
Exactly.
So I'll regroup with Troy and
Okay.
I'll change some of the stuff just myself while we're working on it, social media, adding back in some of the examples from the
I
old
like
to the
that.
new into
Uh-huh.
B.
Do we wanna bring up ChatGTP,
I don't know.
GPT.
Re-
GPT?
And then I'll-
Hard to
Is it
say.
GTT?
GPT.
No,
GPT.
Yeah.
And I'll change to where I wanna get rid of the relationship thing and make it just family and have it apply to employees. And then I'll talk to Troy about cybersecurity, passwords, MML, antivirus stuff. And then I don't know about ChatGPT.
Well, I mean, when he talks
Talks
in
AI.
curriculum, he said it's kind of like we need to learn how to coexist with it. In a sense, it's a tool and it needs to be,
ChatGPT?
yeah, it needs to be embraced a little bit like that, like it's just out there, but we need to understand there's bias and all that in there.
Well,
For sure, but I'm just trying to remember the highlights, cause we talked about it at curriculum.
I
He
mean,
presented.
if ChatGPT writes your paper, that's plagiarism.
Well, right, but that is, this is for staff use of
Right.
information technology,
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but like
Also
students,
can do like.
that's a given in their,
Students is,
um,
yeah, that's different, that's not just policy.
in their handbook. Yeah, cause I even came across where we have a software, I think in high school, where it can survey if there's any plagiarism. That was recent, that was in Masters.
Alright, so that's a good,
Good start on
Good
that.
start, yeah, I like it.
Okay. I'll work with Troy and bring those back.
got that.
So,
No, I just have too many copies, I wanna make sure I say
Yeah, I
what
know,
actually wrote on it.
This is my good copy.
That's my reminder to myself that those are
That's
the
why I do
ones
all the new
that
ones.
don't
to
have your
word.
stuff on it, so
Oh.
when I
Okay,
start throwing things out, I need to make sure I'm not throwing out the ones
True.
that
True.
matter to me.
okay,
Yeah.
823.
Okay, there's an A23 policy and an A23 rule.
Yeah.
A21 is a separate. So this is just the A23 with no decimal point. Okay, well, we'll see how this goes.
Can you first,
Hmm.
cause I read it here in regards to the 824 series, it was revised in 2020.
Oh, yeah, so when he was looking at these, we had multiple policies that covered what is just in this one.
Got it.
So, we were kind of condensing some duplication.
Okay.
So yeah, so for this one, the current board policy 24, access to public records was 2020. It kind of goes hand in hand with this one that is actually 823. And then we had our own 823, which was use of students in public informational programs. And it just seemed unnecessary to have. I'll pull it up.
Yeah, 823, I have it here, it's just like 2 sentences.
It's 2 sentences, which quite honestly, I feel like are probably covered elsewhere, and most likely in all that communication work that's happening in the communication committee. Because it just said students may be used to disseminate information regarding school activities and programs. Well, I mean, that just happens, right? I mean,
Is it in like the student handbook?
and then students shall not be used to communicate political and controversial materials. So we actually do have that.
Well, we're missing a page.
And I know, that's what I said, I'm like, there's no page 2, that's why I kept like wondering.
It's controversial issues policy.
Yeah, so we have that in there. And then we also have it in like our political activity section for adults. And then the other one, quite honestly, kids always bring home like the school newsletter that with everything going
So
on.
we're just gonna get rid of the.
So we were looking to just completely strike our current policy 823 because those 2 sentences didn't feel necessary to have in this standalone policy.
Okay.
And then that would have us then actually accepting WASB's 823, which they call access to public records, which
Which is our
was
old 824.
824. Yeah.
I read, okay.
I just yawned at the screen.
And so we kind of felt like it made sense to get rid of our current 823 and then to have WASB's 823 replace our 824, which is public records.
Okay.
And that's what it was called, access to public records before. And so the policy, I'm afraid to say it should be straightforward, but should be straightforward.
You
So
never know what Joel is.
really this is just going into
Yeah, they just
shall.
followed the law
this is,
on record.
yeah, this is a little bit statute based.
That's cut and dry.
You know?
All they did was follow the law on
Yeah.
open records right down the
Yeah.
line.
So I think it's pretty inclusive, we just,
I like it better than the
in this
old one.
district, the
I do too.
superintendent, it's the superintendent. And then the backup is the board clerk.
Yep.
So the superintendent is unavailable, the board clerk is the next custodian of the record. So that is something that we just tweaked, cause it kind of leaves it blank for you to put in your structure.
Yeah.
So for us, it is the superintendent and it is the board clerk. And I mean, quite honestly, everything else is probably just.
Yeah, it was good, I like it.
Mhm.
There's
And then
nothing
for the purposes of records, the last page, those are our district positions that would be considered public officials for the purpose of open records law.
there.
So it's the board,
Where are you
the
looking at?
superintendent, it's the last page of the policy. So it's, I mean,
Oh, there you go.
here sometimes we use the director, but they're not a contract director, like an administrative director, so we just, instead of saying director level employees, we wanted to make sure that it's the actual administrative directors. It wouldn't apply to our directors who are in a different job class.
Those-
I like the new one for sure.
Mhm.
It's just the rules.
What teachers do are public record too, right?
Anything any employee in the district does is
Yeah,
subject to open records.
I didn't know if they were protected.
There are things that have exceptions in the law that
Sure.
you do not need to make available pursuant to open records, but
Right,
I would say 99% of what any district employee does is subject to it.
Okay.
It's very limited, and it's mostly in my area.
So I have a question on if we can move forward to the rule.
Oh.
Yep.
So the number 3, a request can be made orally,
Yes,
Yeah, that's the law.
that's the law.
so how do you track that? Do we have to document on
So then we
our
would
end?
document it ourselves.
Yeah, I bumped into this a few years ago where,
Oh, okay,
yeah, if there's an oral request, then usually somebody at the district, me or my designee,
Yeah.
would follow up and say, you verbally requested this, and then,
do we need to document on our end? I just think that, and then
no, we're essentially gonna have to create it
We
from-
yeah,
create
that's
it.
what I was saying, that
From
we
our
have
end.
to, right?
We
Okay,
would say
Yeah, how does that-
email or phone call,
got
and
it.
then start it on our end via their verbal outreach.
So if somebody verbally told me they wanted a record, then I'd say, okay, I would get their contact information from them, and then I would go to Kim to log it in our sheet and for her to
That's right.
send them,
So we have
our
a trail that
standard
we would
email.
create, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
and then we would track it just like any other one, but yes, you have to,
It's just a different start line.
Okay, cause I also saw here, we can also respond orally too.
That is true.
Correct.
And I go, so then we.
I mean, I wouldn't
just wanna make
recommend
sure that we're
Yeah, I
like,
wouldn't,
Oh.
yeah, I know,
it
that
is
we
the
should
law,
actually
but-
have it logged somewhere.
I don't know anyone that responds to open
I
record
know, I read
requests.
it, I go, that's
I mean,
odd, okay.
quite honestly, if you're responding just orally, it's likely that you're saying you don't have a record.
Right, the record doesn't exist.
Because, you know, if they're actually asking for a record, they would be getting something tangible to review. But, I mean, I would say that we have a process here, so that if somebody asked you for a record just orally, you would then transmit that to the superintendent and to Kim, who would then create a written paper trail of it, and that we would be responding. We would continue to respond in writing. I would not recommend oral responses, and especially if they're a no, that triggers a lot of things. No's, or just flat no's trigger a lot of things.
Okay, got it. That's what
So
I
you
thought, I was
said,
like,
you said if we don't have anything, if it's not on, how did you say that again, orally first?
Well, if you were to
Rewind and tape.
like, if you were to respond
Yeah.
to a request orally,
Right,
you're probably saying, no, we don't have a record, because I don't know how
Gotcha.
you would respond orally with a record.
oh,
Unless you
gotcha,
just read the like if you just read everything that was
Okay,
in the
gotcha.
record.
got it.
So I would say that we just would follow a better practice of always responding in writing.
I had
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
wanted to respond orally, and then it was recorded. So I've heard of
I just
that.
wanna make sure
Yeah,
that
I
we
mean,
on
I
our
guess
end cover.
'Cause then there's that
I guess if somebody
Documentation, though.
needed like an accommodation for us to read something
Yeah.
into a device, that would be fine, but I wouldn't just be
Yeah, no,
like
not our standard
randomly,
practice.
yeah.
Alright. I just had questions. Because I'm looking at the old one. I just like how the old delineated the fee part. So because I'm trying to think like a layman taking a look at it, they would,
I mean, they do have fees at the back here, 3
Yeah.
cents per page, blah, blah,
I'm just thinking
blah.
of myself, if I were to
Yeah.
read visually, that makes it hard for me to understand versus right here, location rules may only be opposed, so you can easily
Yeah.
find it.
So it's the
you know,
same
for a couple
stuff, just
So,
maybe a little
so just
It's
take
just
this
how
stuff and put it
table.
into like a nice,
Or add it,
easy visual.
you know,
Yeah.
add it
Was
for
it
an
an
easy
exhibit?
visual.
No, it's part of
It
the
was part of the old,
procedure.
procedure 824, yes. I just saw that because it would be easy if I was looking, I like this, you know, digital, fee waived here, it's just so much easier than actually words. And then I like the example here, activity cost total, so people would have an idea of
Yeah.
what they would be charged versus,
Mhm.
you
So they do get sent that by Kim.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
So
does that need to
in,
be in the procedure? Maybe
so
not
in
really,
her
but if they get
when
a,
she gets back to somebody, if we do think there are gonna be any
Yeah.
costs, then
Yeah.
she does have all of that
oh, okay.
in there.
I just liked this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think as maybe as the
What it
rule or
is.
procedure, I don't know if it's
Oh,
necessary.
the table,
Yeah,
the
that
table and the whole, I just like it because I think it's just easier for people to understand.
So I think the list is actually pretty much the same.
Yeah,
Yeah, the listing thing
And
is just on
then
a table.
it's just the
the
format.
table.
And I do like the duty to notify persons needing good records identified for release. We don't actually have that in here.
The what?
No, that should be in there because that's a requirement for some certain records.
I like that old.
What is it, which one?
I don't, it's the old one in this one, I'll show you, duty.
Duty to notify person's name.
Right here, this is in the old one.
Okay.
Asterisk, can you see that, large enough print?
Try.
I think I tried looking at it in the new one, and I don't know where it was at.
Well, I know, like, for some of the stuff in my area, if it's your personnel file or if it's any discipline information, I have to alert you prior and then you actually have some timeframes that kick in for you to take action. Not for you guys, but for regular employees.
Number 6 of the rule is pretty important. Under B, records request under the Wisconsin Public Records Law. Neither any records authority nor any legal custodian of records is required to create new records that do not presently exist in response to any request.
Where are you reading?
B6,
B6 in the rule.
Yes.
Yeah, that's those in the old one.
But that, what you said is not in this?
I don't think I saw it, that's why
I mean, I think it should.
duty to notify. I really think it's in the discretion.
And maybe it's like a
Notification, request.
courtesy or whatever, but,
It's not just a courtesy for
It's
some types
still-
of records.
oh, gotcha.
Okay, we'll put that back. Duty to notify.
Yeah, I don't think I saw it, so I thought that would be a good thing to add.
So I know in my area, if people are requesting certain types of information that would be deemed very personal, they get a letter that gives them, like, I can't remember now, a certain amount of days, I think it's 10 days to file with the courts to block the release of those records. And I always notify people of who asked for their records, their personal records, like not just like, they want the budget, but like I want Leah Scotter's personnel file. I want any discipline action taken against Leah Scotter, that you do have a legal responsibility to notify the employee because people will use open records to try to circumvent contact orders, harassment orders, things like that.
Gotcha.
And then that's how they try to, it happens a lot in divorce or in bad relationships or things like that.
Interesting.
But there are some places where it is not optional, it is required, so we'll put that back in.
Okay.
So where does the exhibit, the old exhibit 824, come into play with the new 823? The open
So they don't really use exhibits,
Okay,
so
I just don't know where.
I don't know why this is open, it's weird.
Procedure? This was the old one,
So
the procedure and it's
Oh.
considered an
this
exhibit.
flow chart,
Yeah,
I mean,
Hmm.
it's not all, there is like a little
That
bit
could be
wrong with it.
Accurate.
So I mean, if we want a flow chart, I have no problem making one, but this is not,
yeah, I was just wondering how we used that before, cause it was
cause
in
like where
our
it
old
says
one.
is request burdensome and it says yes. If you just say no, that's problematic. You have to tell the person, you need to be more specific, or you need to give me a date range, or you need to provide keywords, or, so you can't just go right to like, sorry, we're not doing it.
Gotcha,
So we're
yeah.
removing it,
I think
right?
you,
I was gonna
Okay,
remove the
got it.
exhibits, but I mean,
I
if
think it
people
should be.
really like it,
No, I just wanted to
I
ask where it
agree.
was used before.
Oh, yeah.
I
We
think
don't-
that
we don't
leads
use
to a little confusion or.
Oh, they're gonna use that as like,
Yeah, to like, like.
I don't actually
like
think it's that
gospel.
convoluted, and quite honestly, that one kind of felt more like internal, like it wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily be public, it would be more like
I don't know how you would follow it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you couldn't
Which
follow
way,
it
which
as
end
a,
would you start?
as a requester, you couldn't follow it. And then this was the other
Yeah.
exhibit,
The guide,
which once
would
again is
this
just
be more like internal, cause it sounded like it,
the,
like this whole thing, part of the exhibit.
yeah,
That
so
I
I was just gonna get
Oh.
rid of the exhibits.
Okay, got it.
I didn't think we needed these exhibits.
Okay,
This kind of stuff is like for us, and Kim already has that
okay,
documented.
got it, alright. That's the only thing I wanted to know what we were gonna do with that.
Okay, so the policy seemed okay, and then in the procedure with the rule, bringing back the duty to notify. Okay, I can do that.
And then the chart, okay, got it.
Do you want do you want the chart in?
No,
Do you want the,
Keep it out.
I'd say keep it out.
Okay.
I don't
I
know,
mean,
you like the chart in?
if-
Oh, you mean the
Yeah,
little,
I
the
like-
table?
Not the flow chart.
No, I
I'm
like the
talking
table,
about-
I like it, but
If someone's gonna request,
not the full chart, the table.
no, I mean, the table, I don't even,
No,
No, this.
uh-oh, too old school for you?
but I mean, if someone's gonna request open record stuff, we're not gonna send them our policy and procedure, we're gonna send them the sheet that we normally give them, right?
I know, but this is part of
But-
our website where people will look up.
Parents and
If
community
anybody
members,
were ever
if
to
the
look up,
reviews.
I think, I
I'll
like
bring
it.
one with
we
it in
did-
and one with it not in next time, and we'll see what.
I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah,
because-
well,
It doesn't matter,
applies.
put that way.
Well, we did express at some, that it's very important that when parents or community members, when they read it,
They
it
need
is
to
user
understand.
friendly and it's not like so
So here to
policy-ish.
me, it would take me probably a couple times to kind of read it, understand,
Mhm.
versus here, it's like, okay, location, here, I can go, it, to me,
Okay.
and it has an example for people to also understand
Sure.
too, the
Like,
how they're gonna be
If it's
charged.
just an, yeah,
Helpful for them
procedure
to also
or rule,
understand, so I like it,
I
I think
think
we should put it in
Okay. I can do
Fine.
that.
it's,
I can do that.
You got yours out.
I can do that myself. I'm gonna dump
Who's
the other
gonna
thing on
call one
Troy,
today?
I'm gonna handle that one by myself. Okay.
Alright, we're good there, that was the
Alright.
only thing I thought was, okay,
And then we're moving on
823
to-
1.
823. Yeah, I mean, this one's pretty cut and dry too, what, I mean, Wisconsin law defines what retention records,
Yeah, I mean, it's not, there was nothing there that would.
yeah,
Okay, so what I do like about this one though is that it does link to that Wisconsin records
The
retention
schedule, yep.
schedule.
Yep.
Cause people ask me for it all the time.
Oh,
So, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
public,
that's
but
nice.
people ask me for it all the time, so this way it's like nicely linked in there already.
Yep.
And it's a very long document, but it literally lists all of the records that matter, and then the whole time on them. Most of my life is like really long, so I just know I hold on to everything.
Yep.
But it's helpful, I don't think there's anything interesting in here. I did read these a little bit better, technology is not my normal area, but this is. So I don't think there's anything.
Yeah,
Oh,
I wouldn't
yeah.
see anything.
Because the old policy said 7 years retaining records, correct?
So
What is
So
the,
7 is kind of like, if you don't know, do 7.
like you do with your taxes?
So
That's right.
but
I think
isn't there
citing the Wisconsin records retention schedule is the
Isn't better.
best.
Yeah,
Because there are some things that are forever.
okay, gotcha.
So arbitrations,
That's kind of what I was
contract
wondering.
negotiations,
students' record until they're dead, right?
a lot of stuff with
7
students and
isn't
staff.
common.
It's forever.
Medical
folks.
records.
Some things are 30
Unless it's-
years after
yeah.
retirement.
I was just curious,
Yeah,
like,
that's just
because it's
nice.
variable then, like, so if you reference
Oh, yeah.
that,
I
it's
mean, the list is
extremely
endless.
variable.
Yeah.
But let's say you have something
Yeah.
that you can't place in that document,
right.
In general, 7 years.
7 years.
So because we've had open record requests, like on things that are older than what was on board docs. It's being stored here, right, like on paper or something like that? That's what I
I'm
was told.
assuming somewhere.
In the basement, yeah,
Microfiche.
in the it's in the basement.
You might have,
Boxes.
you might have that, yeah, but there's a ton in the basement in boxes. Oh,
And they would
Didn't
be
know that.
charged
Never
because
had that tool.
oh, you haven't been in the basement yet?
No.
Oh. Well, I
Check
mean,
it
it's
out.
nothing exciting.
Well, there is a open record request.
Then that
I'll
means-
put it on my
something
list for
like that.
tomorrow.
Oh, really?
It's actually one of the things, I know there's a
Well,
key
that
somewhere,
should
it's actually the villages, and we have
Oh.
2 cages down there with our stuff.
Oh, I think I was down there. It's down next to the police section.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I was down there, but I didn't go that
So we
way.
have 2 cage sections that are locked that are
Got
ours,
it.
but the rest of it's the villages.
Okay,
How long do we have to retain like student transcripts until they're dead, right?
So that's at the high school, yeah, so that's like forever.
Forever, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, if
They
somebody comes
always
back at
ask
80
me
years
for-
old and needs their transcript,
I think at some point they start culling them, but yeah,
Yeah, at a
those are
certain
long
age.
holds.
and it's digital now, so I mean,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah, it's easier.
Right.
so
Interesting,
it's
yeah.
much more easier the last
But,
Yeah.
years.
you know, like
Yeah.
if, so now, the other thing is, we do need to start culling our records. Because just because it says it's a 7-year hold, you can't say, oh, we don't have that record because it's over 7 years. If you actually have it, you still have to give it. So if you hoard everything forever, you actually do still have to then give the record. But you're legally allowed to get rid of, to destroy it appropriately
After 7.
at those year marks, but if you
So-
don't, you can't just use this as your no,
Yeah, I get it.
so.
Then we would just charge them for locating them.
That could be a big fee.
Quite honestly, that could
Because you'd
be,
have to go down there
I'm just going to
so-
tell you, it's kind of a thing down there, so you have to find something.
So they would be charged for it.
Well, I'll put it on my tomorrow's list here, I'll calendar.
Is it like really
So
high?
MPS sent them off-site to Iron Mountain,
Oh, wow.
a company called Iron Mountain.
oh yeah, yeah.
And I'm just telling you, I'm not sure how it would ever come back. Like, we actually did have like a very long box number and then an itemized list of what was
Yeah.
in that box, but I just like, to me, it felt like a black hole, like,
Yeah,
how would we ever get that box?
like on Raiders of the Lost Ark when they
Oh,
were
you
looking for the
call
ark.
Iron Mountain,
You know what I mean?
I know,
All
but it
the
felt-
crates
Box.
It felt
everywhere.
like,
Like it's being filed
it
away.
just felt like it might not be that easy to
No.
actually have them get that box.
Oh, no, it's,
Exactly.
it's like, have you ever been in one of those? Like, it is
No,
organized like
really?
crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they
just-
know,
they
you
just
tell them
have it.
box, they'll have it in 5 minutes.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
I just
Okay,
felt like
you're up
That's
next.
fascinating.
I just felt like we
Looking at
were
the time, you're up
getting
next.
them.
He's like,
I
oh,
would.
what?
So the quick check,
Check.
so that's
I
pretty
wanted you
much
to talk
what
Or
Mr. Munoz
you
said
are,
to me.
okay, yeah.
So WASB does have this service for a fee. Oh, it kind of copied weird on here.
Yeah,
I
it did.
had
That's
I had several conversations with Ben Niehaus about this.
Yep.
And like we've talked for maybe 2 to 3 times on, he's
WASB.
WASB
Policy
policy.
resource guide.
Policies. Yeah, he's our policy rep through the WASB.
Yeah.
I've had several conversations with him. He didn't necessarily recommend this, but because he is looking at our policies right now, just as a service, he's taking a look at them for us to say, these are some general things, because the public ones, you know, you could look at, just to see what his thoughts are. It's possible after he gets back to me, which he's supposed to in the next week, that he'll say, you know what, I think a quick check would be really good. And what a quick check is you're new to WASB, they look at all the policies and say, okay, these are priority things that like a policy, he asked, he goes, do you have a policy committee? He says, yes, we do. And he says, well, you know, if you choose to do this, and we do the quick check, which he says I'm not recommending or not recommending, but they'll come back and say, these are things that are high priority for this committee. And these are things you can put on a list, and they'll rank it as, and they'll probably be legal things and, but I have a follow-up call with him, calendar, I think for Monday or Tuesday.
So their quick,
It's just it's
the
a
quick check
product.
Like
fee
a,
here, is that a global fee for a certain time frame, or is it just to
It's
overview the
It's
all
a
of our
one-time
policies?
use.
It's a one-time fee to,
so if we wanted it again next year, it'd be another,
but they
one-time
wouldn't do that, so.
no,
So he said, if you do the quick check once, you're gonna figure things out from there, meaning it'll be up to this committee to look at it and go, I think we're good, I think we got a handle on where we're going, and they're fine with that. Or, he says, if you have certain areas that you want specific WASB policy experts to be working on the 300s or something, you know, they do that as well, but we didn't even talk about that. We were just more having conversation about WASB being new here, you know, and how do we, my conversation with him was from the standpoint of, all right, we haven't had WASB in, you know, X amount of years, maybe never. How do we get ourselves up to starting point with the understanding that there's always a cycle. You know, there's always gonna be a review cycle like we've done here, like it seems pretty standard.
So this amount would be considered as a one-time fee, full fee to review everything.
To look at the entire policy book.
Okay, so they will also have the option of doing kind of like à la carte, right?
Yeah,
And you're
this
saying
is what
that
it is. There is
we
an
want to
extra
pick and
fee.
choose which 300s, 400s that they would charge us separately or individually for that.
Absolutely.
Can we
But they don't-
find out
they're-
the cost of that possibly?
So it could cost more than $5,000?
No,
No, the quick check is $5,000.
it's kind of like ordering a combo plate versus à la carte.
Yeah,
Right,
the a la
kinda
carte is a
like-
deep dive, and they're gonna spend some time actually writing policies and pulling out line by line. That's more of a Neola service, that's why Neola costs so much,
Oh, yeah.
is because
We
they're
don't
doing
want
that all the time.
Yeah.
So the WASB just offers more of these, like when I was looking at, and the one that I just shot you an email,
Yeah.
they have these templates out there, and we have the
Mhm.
book, so I can look at them all.
Mhm.
So I can see all of it already. So as I've already started looking at, you know, and so as Leah, looking at the WASB policies and looking at ours and kind of going, well, some are pretty close and some aren't. And
So aren't we kind of prioritizing already? I mean,
I mean, I thought
based
that's,
on the age of it and it.
But he's looking at like the legal aspect of it.
Right, but what I'm saying is, as it's aging out, we are updating the legal aspect of it through WASB, because we're looking at
right,
our
yeah,
service that we paid, how much did we pay for the upstart? Like 15,000, or was it more?
Oh, no, that
No.
was Neola, this
That was
was
Neola.
12?
34
Oh,
Yeah.
for 3 years, so like,
It wasn't that much.
it was 3,400 a year over 3 years.
I
yeah,
thought
they,
the upstart was a little more, but.
Can you find out
Okay.
exactly what they're gonna give us for this overhaul? Like, will they then just review it, give us a guideline, a suggestion as what's a priority, what's not? And will they also be able to review duplicate policies or redundant policies, like what Leah did? You remember when we went through the books and all that? So she was able to do that. That takes time to kind of consolidate. What exactly does that
I'm wondering if,
include?
I thought he had sent me a template,
Oh, okay.
but maybe not. Looking back at my emails, a lot of them are phone conversations.
I'm just thinking of what's more beneficial for us is doing that, what that would entail, and we're getting our money's worth, versus finding the whatever 100 section that needs the most help and having them just address those. Cause we already did through the 100.
I mean, we're almost like done,
right?
Almost all the 100s
So,
are.
And we
you know
could
what I
be
mean? I don't know.
cross-referencing
Yeah, so I don't know. if
on
we
our
need
own.
Yeah, it may not be necessary, I mean, I can, if you would like, I can have him, cause he and I think verbally, I'm looking through my,
I think it's important to think about it, consider it, but I wanna know what we're getting for the amount that we're paying.
yeah, I'm gonna have a follow-up phone call with him, and I'll just ask for templates so you can see, like,
Yeah.
you know, take out the district's name, because obviously they've done this.
Yeah.
And what exactly would you be receiving?
And then what is this policy resource guide? Is that through our
Oh, it's-
service?
Yeah.
That's what we get?
That's what it's called.
But we get that because we're through WASB.
So we have the policy resource guide is like an add-on
Yeah,
feature to
I can-
people who are members of WASB.
Gotcha.
And that's what is then the manual.
Because
This
I mean,
manual
it
here.
already is telling you they're prioritizing the moderate to moderate to the
Right.
high, so
Oh,
that's
yeah, so when I
already
go
guided
to-
Pull it up
So when
right
I
here.
go, when I'm logged in
Yeah.
as, like when I'm actually logged in at the public site.
Yeah.
I go to policies and I can go to policy resource guide.
Yep.
And then now over here, instead of our policies, it's WASB's template policies. And so then I'm
Right,
just opening up the 100 series, and so I choose 110, then,
well, that's why I thought this was kind of nice, we look at our policies and cross-reference it with this,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
so
To
then
see
it
if we
gives me
prioritize
the
it.
sample policy.
So this is what
For
I
some
just
reason
did as we were
dumps up
sitting here. I went into policy resource guide and said, okay,
Oh, sorry.
you know,
I
here's
was
what
trying to
we're,
plagiarize myself from back in the day.
so I just went into the PRG, this resource guide. And I looked at it, and I actually had good conversations with Ben,
Mhm.
because I was a Neola client before, but this is very interesting because
Mhm.
I can look at all these, Neola doesn't let you do that.
Yeah, you have access
I
to
can
the
look at it, I
templates.
can look at them all, and
Yeah.
make decisions and put it
So
right
this
out
one
in front of
has
you.
But I mean, we
more.
don't pay extra for that right now,
No.
No.
we have access to all
No,
that.
this is,
So,
you're sitting on this right
So like
now.
this one has more, like some of them just have one policy, cause it's like pretty tiny. So like this one actually has 2 sample policies,
Yeah.
3 sample rules,
Yeah.
1 sample exhibit, and then like I said, this one's obviously a more important.
I think that's
thing.
what we were
So
really
then
drawn by
this-
when we, because we were choosing
give
between
you,
Neola
like-
and
Yeah,
WASB.
this will give you all kinds of like background information, history, so we can see this for all the ones that we're doing, if it has it, like I said, some are like still pretty
So my thing
tiny.
is, I know that it offers it and I know it has it, but it's your time, okay? I'm thinking of, in regards to what we're gonna get from paying somebody to do that with, because it'll be falling on you.
Yeah.
You know, you have time to do other things, your HR stuff too. So that's where I'm trying to strike a balance. Is it worth us having somebody to do that as overhaul versus, I know we have access to it, I get it, but it's the manpower to get this done for us.
Yeah, maybe if
I
you
mean,
can
it's
send
not
us
that
like what
many
it looks like
policies.
when you get it back from them, I think that would, I'm sure they
And can you
do
ask
something
about like the à la
else.
carte prices?
I
Because
will.
if we can, you know, let's just say pick like a couple hundred series that we think is most important, then have them do it for X amount of dollars
Yeah.
versus doing the whole overall. I mean, I'm open to anything,
Then I'm gonna be
that's why I
hard pressed
just
to
wanna-
look at it, and then what if I wanna change it, I'm gonna be like, well, we paid for it, I'm not
Right.
gonna,
Hard pressed for what?
you know, like if I just, you know, maybe wanna add some nuances to it, to our just, you know, comparing our old policy to our newer, and then we already paid for it,
Paid for what?
the policy, the à la carte, then
No,
reviewing
it's
it
the
and giving
time for
us
them
new
to-
policy.
No, it isn't that their job is to prioritize what needs to be fixed, not give us a policy.
Well,
That's not-
they'll give you a policy if you pay for it.
Yeah, that's the à la carte.
So the quick check is them
Surveying
Reviewing
it,
what we
it's
have.
like an
Surveying,
inventory,
looking at, yes.
like we
Inventory
already
is a
have.
good way to look at it, is look
Okay.
at 30,000 feet and say, okay, where do we see that there are concerns that we need to address quickly?
Uh-huh.
So, but they will, because we talked about it, like if you want them to write policy for you, they do that as well, which is what Neola does. Neola pounds it out and you have option A, option B. You know, in Neola, you pick A, you pick B, and then if you deviate from that, then that's fine with Neola too, but then they'll take their name off of it.
So is there one where they would just review it for us and prioritize it for us? And not give us a policy?
I think the quick check is creating a priority list.
Yeah.
I believe so,
Like
and I can
this.
get a
Cause that I think
document.
what we would need versus them writing policies for us, to just give us what we need to address.
Yeah. I don't think they would charge excessive, I mean, 5,000, but that's the only number we talked about.
But I mean, we're gonna start chipping away at these, we've already tackled a lot, and priority is, you know, the outdated ones, I would imagine would be first.
Mhm.
And any new laws or whatever, I get that, but I don't know, I'm just kinda like, I don't
So
know
as an
if it's really
overview,
worth the money.
do you guys think that we have policies that are outdated that needs to be, I mean, the sense of urgency of doing that versus taking our time and cause if there are policies that we have that we are not up to date, that puts us at risk, I have a problem with that. So I would consider it,
Like
you know, bring back.
look at the 200 series. We currently have 2 policies in our 200 series,
Mhm.
right? That's just an example of one that I quick looked at.
Yeah.
That's, usually you have more than that in that particular series. That doesn't mean that, you know, cause right
That
now,
was
in the
for you,
policy guide,
Yeah.
in the PRG policy guide, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
There's a lot.
There's like a dozen.
Okay.
But doesn't mean we have to have them.
No, but at least looking at it and saying, okay, administrative staff evaluation, employee handbook.
200 series.
Because we don't know what we're
revise.
missing out on if we don't know what's there.
So
That's my
Well,
whole point.
that was
we
a
still
quick
have
one.
access to it too.
You do.
But yeah,
So I think,
You do, you have the templates.
Yeah.
so I do think we have a couple of
It's
these
all
things
in
like in other places.
yeah, exactly.
So I think some of these things we actually do have like in the student section and in the personnel section. And then I think we also have 1 or 2 of these in the board operations section.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it'd be helpful to get an example from Ben of what you actually get back when they do it, like a sample of what you get back.
Yeah, just
And
because
then-
right now it's all hypothetical.
And then we can kind of see is like that something that would help us meet our goals.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll also give us one more month of working in it to, you know, Do a
And
bit
meanwhile,
more
we'll
of
just
that.
keep chipping away.
yeah.
I mean, I'm also conscientious of the time too, that if it's worth it, we would consider it, but I don't want to, you know, spend a ton on it.
So I mean, I'll just say this.
Mm-hmm.
If there is a law out there, it trumps our policy no matter if we have the policy or not.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a hierarchy to things, like
Gotcha.
board policy trumps the handbook.
Right.
So like if there's something in policy that's different than the handbook, the policy wins over the employee handbook.
Okay.
But if there is a state statute
That
and that
trumps it all.
statute is not
Yeah,
is
exactly.
different
It's
from
like,
our policy,
Got
the
it.
statute still wins.
Yeah,
And so like if an issue does pop up, we're probably looking to statutes as well,
yeah.
you know,
So there's not an urgency
I feel like we
necessarily.
would not be a rival the law
Mhm.
just because maybe our policy wasn't on point with it anymore.
Got it.
That's
But
what I was gonna ask
we do
too.
want them to be correct, I'm absolutely
Right.
saying we want them to be correct, but like, even though ours was from 2010 for like some email
Hey.
stuff,
Mhm.
there's still nothing like technically wrong with it. This is
Mhm.
recorded,
Non-discrimination.
Mhm.
It's not, so
Okay,
if it wasn't left, I can take care of it.
okay.
Alright.
Yeah, well, that,
So,
well, that's what I was gonna ask
Okay.
if it's like
if it's
like-
not,
the urgency,
So,
you know,
yeah, I mean, I
versus-
don't wanna dismiss the fact
need
that our
or
policy
want.
should be as legally accurate as
Yeah.
possible. But like, technically, we'd always be looking to make sure we're on the right side of the legal part of the issue.
so I guess
If we
if
had an issue
if we got
arise.
some tangible examples,
Yeah, I
we
just-
probably make
I just shot him a
it.
message and we were gonna talk anyway, so
But her
Okay.
radar is up about spending.
Well,
We're very
I mean,
good. So I
we
am
are
too,
doing
you know.
all the right things, I think, and I think it's just kind of redundant a little bit, but that's just my opinion.
So if there is a sense of urgency to do it, that's important, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, but if not, then hey,
I was sitting
just-
home just looking through and comparing
Yeah.
and when you see 2 versus 12, you kinda go.
Yeah.
Then I started looking through them all, going, okay, that's important, the mystery evaluation. There's a lot of important aspects of what the PRG is throwing in there, but we do have you're very
But let me
correct,
ask you
we
that.
have them, we have them all.
Right, will that survey pick that up? Will it say,
Oh, yeah.
you don't have those, you only have 2 versus the 12, however, it is here, and we have here covered here, 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 and here. Yeah.
like that part of the service,
Yeah,
the minimal service.
the minimum.
But we have it
But
as well.
I mean, for me, it just seemed like it was just
But like, we have
gonna-
evaluation in the staff handbook in the 500s, not the 200s, so like, I know we don't have all of them, but like, we do have a
Yeah.
chunk of them, we just,
Like, I mean, there's a lot
Put
there,
them
but it's
someplace
not like
else,
that much.
yeah.
I mean, yeah,
So yeah, so let's,
I'll follow up with that.
let's go
Okay.
have that.
all right,
We'll go
to be
from there.
continued.
Okay, do we,
Okay,
next is the.
so the next is the, you know, kind of talking about what's next.
Mm-hmm,
And talking about what's next for just coming through, you know, it might have to go through its own committee if it has a committee that makes sense for it, or just come via ours.
gotcha.
Mr. Munoz asked me to have on page 8, communicable diseases come. I let Laura know that that's one that we'd like to bring forward. I did already kind of take a sneak peek at WASB's and I think it's pretty good.
Mhm.
So I do think we'll be able to take WASB, the bulk of
Right.
WASB's recommendation. I actually thought it had
This is where.
some better stuff than we have in ours, so, but I know we're gonna bring forward 53.4, the communicable diseases next time.
Yep.
Like I said, I already did like a pre-look, so I think that's, good. And then, I talked to Amy Rebel, we were going to bring, the curriculum in October, so I don't know if we wanna do that joint again, or if we wanna have it go through curriculum first and then policy.
Yep.
But September's kind of a busy month for curriculum and learning, so
Yeah.
we will bring it in October. Also, curriculum is like totally a board thing, so, I mean, I don't really think it has as much outside influence as like the other ones did.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't think there's any harm in October
Okay,
for that and
that
just
sounds good.
to not overwhelm
Yeah,
the department that like kicks off learning
no,
at
exactly.
the start of school.
Yeah.
And so then I kind of felt like, you know, we might want some other things that would just come through here. So we still did have 3 in the 100 series, so that were old, so I don't know if you wanna,
There you go.
we have
Bust them out.
153 administrator relations.
Bust out that
We have, yeah,
Policy
133,
resource guide.
133
Put it to use.
board vacancy,
Yeah.
185 committees of the board, and I know committees was something else that we were gonna maybe talk about, so I don't know if September, it's at the very end of September, our next meeting, so
Oh,
that might be a
okay.
good time to talk about
That's
if
true.
our committees are making sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cause I know I think for Caitlin
like
and I, like joint has been kind of working for personnel and finance, cause we have so much overlap together,
I
but
think that ever should be a discussion at the board, full board before we talk about that. I don't know how the,
We just left it so.
Yeah. up in the air.
so those were 3 that would just come through.
What were the first 2? I got the last
Oh, I'm sorry, so I said 153, administrator relations,
right?
133, filling board of education vacancies, that's pretty statutory.
Yeah.
And then 185 committees of the board of education.
Got it.
And those are the ones that are just past that 5-year mark. So those, you know, don't have another committee really to go through. So then, you know, I was kind of also thinking, when you see pupil services, technology, superintendent, they don't have committees, so those could be ones that, you know, we could be looking at to just have come
True.
here.
Mhm.
I was thinking about doing animals and learning environment, cause that kind of already was a thing for me this past school
Oh.
year, so
Oh, that
I was
sounds good.
thinking about bringing 383,
Okay.
is someone bringing their dogs to school?
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
What?
Bring your dogs.
Oh,
So-
because we do have some that come into the school.
Well,
So,
there's
well,
other scenarios.
So I didn't really care for our policy when it came to just employees.
I always wonder about that too, like I'm allergic and.
So it's page 4, 383, animals and learning environment. I was thinking about bringing that one because I already started doing more research on that one.
Yeah, there's several newer policies out there, especially as related to support dogs.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there's different levels
The
of animals.
emotional,
Yes.
There's different training and different levels.
I know that
Oh,
from
yeah,
Mac.
me
Fish
too. We
versus
have therapy
snake.
dogs in my department.
Yeah, I trained.
Snakes aren't allowed,
Oh, yeah,
that's
you
in
train.
state law.
I trained
So
for
there's-
therapy.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Emotional support, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm talking,
I'm
there
sure.
are very different levels of
Yes.
emotional support versus service dog versus and certification dogs. So
and there's
I
levels
know.
of training and 'cause
Correct.
we ran into it with, when I first got to Mosinee, they had a dog that the district had purchased, but the training, yes, but then there wasn't, they had to send them to specific kinds of training. But then there were other people that wanted to bring in their animals who had lower levels of training.
Oh,
So
yeah,
there's like tiered policies
for sure.
in terms of the
Oh.
different levels.
Yeah.
And then there's IEPs, and then medical notes about children, and then there's that whole,
And what about stuffed animal dogs? I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's different.
And then also too, they're in buildings, they also have to go
be there.
through, they have to go
Don't
through like a,
Everyone to my
like a
meeting next.
hygiene, you know, they, like the
Yeah.
ones
Yeah.
that
So then-
are like comfort, yeah.
So Caitlin,
hyperallergenic.
Caitlin does have a bunch in finance. I know September is a big month for her with the annual meeting.
Yeah,
So I just let her know that, you know, she should probably start bringing some that are old through finance first, and then they'll come here.
I like prioritizing
sure-
based on their schedule too.
So
I
for
mean, I
sure
think
for
that's
September,
important.
we could have 153, 133,
Okay.
185, 453 point something. 453.4 communicable disease, and 383 animals in the learning environment,
Nice. What was that number again? I know it's not highlighted,
383.
but 383.
It is highlighted.
What were the 400 ones?
The 400 is 453.4.
I have so many of these, I think I need to start like
And communicable diseases
I just put it
isn't
in my.
technically
every,
old, but it is very COVID specific still.
yeah.
453, okay, there.
I'm sorry, they're not numerical order, page 8. So I don't know if you
That
have
sounds good
another
to
one
me.
or,
Yeah, why not? Let's go for it.
No,
there's a bunch,
Well, if there's a short one, a little one.
there's a bunch in the 400 section that are people services, which would come through here, cause it doesn't have a committee.
True, spread the wealth.
But I mean, there's a lot of them, I can't do all of them.
unauthorized use of equipment
2021,
on school premises.
I'm looking at the ones that, the dated ones that we put.
Open enrollment. Did we
Oh,
do
that one had 1992,
Gonna
look
be
at that.
Big one.
I saw that one.
Open enrollment.
That one jumped out at me like, wow. But it's probably,
That
Not
one,
that big.
that one I'll probably have to get Caitlin and Amy in this too, that's probably gonna be a multi-director one.
which one is that? I can't.
Open
remember.
enrollment 423.
Oh, yeah.
What about 452, 454? School wellness, child abuse or neglect?
I feel like you,
So open
Yeah.
enrollment, just so you know,
Oh, that was corporal
TRG
punishment.
policy resource guide has 5 sample policies.
We're probably gonna hold off on that one, I think that's a multi-director, where was the 1992 one?
The 1992
Oh,
is the
so it's on
the
page
first
6.
page.
Okay, I'll tell
Student
Caitlin
papers.
to make that a
That's an
priority
easy
for
one.
oh,
next
yeah,
week.
because,
Let's just do that.
Well, that should go through finance.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, okay,
Not directly to us,
that's right.
Yeah, that's
but
fine.
I'll tell her to take that to her next available.
April 13th, 1992.
yeah, and I thought that was interesting, because we just, but yeah.
Yeah, I saw that one. That was one of the ones that stuck out.
Okay, so do you wanna
Well,
do,
then we'll
do
already tell that.
you wanna do
Okay,
452
we're already
and
on it.
454?
I have
School
not.
wellness and child abuse and neglect?
What page is that on?
Not a 7.
I just did a policy review, that's all I
I
was
know, I
doing.
know.
Oh, 27 and 28.
But you're like the guru too.
You ought to see
I
the
don't know, I
open
think Joel
enrollment
mentioned
one.
those two.
Oh, okay.
School
Should we
wellness
pick
and
one that's
child abuse.
earlier? Cause I wanna do the ones that's past that 5-7 year.
Those are 2018.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, they're a little, I mean, they're technically a little closer, but,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking at like
Seems-
2013
Seems
to
like
2014.
yesterday, but.
but we also have to look at ones that would come directly to us and not another.
Pupil
group.
services, search and seizure. That's it's on page 6. I'm
Might
looking at
not be a
other
lot
ones.
of changes there.
Yeah, those are easy, those are low hanging fruit, as you would say.
Okay, search and seizure. Okay.
Look at all these policies.
Yeah. Dangerous weapons, those are easy ones. Pupil services.
That'd be cool.
Dangerous weapons.
Mhm. I
We've
don't
got
think there'll be much
2014.
dispute there.
20.
Might have to update the weapons.
Okay, that sounds
Okay,
good.
I
so,
won't bring billy clubs anymore.
okay,
So there's some options there, huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll have a
Easy
bunch.
mix with-
Good deal, I like
we'll
it.
have a bunch ready to
Awesome.
come.
Alright, so we're ready to.
You know, because I
Are we
come to
ready adjourn?
participate.
I know,
Next
I'll be-
meeting.
I'll be
You
ready
guys
for
are-
everybody.
I think we already tentatively set it for September 28th.
Hey, I didn't normally talk this
We'll
time.
keep that.
Mr.
Yeah,
MT
and
did.
October, no, we already jumped ahead. So we're ready to adjourn?
Motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Got it. Done. Thank you, ma'am.